Jordan, 600-mile border with Israel. So, and Egypt is very, very, very crucial to Israel, to the extent that when Mubarak had to leave, they said, we lost a strategic treasure. And this is documented. They were so sad because Mubarak was indeed their boy. He even did things that they didn't ask him for. Wallahi, this is documented. This is really documented. And so many writers said and wrote messages to him, okay, you are weak, but don't do the things that you dream that they wanted from you. I'm sorry, I elaborate on things, so if there is a question, that would be...
Yes,
yeah.
Just two questions. You mentioned just now about Abu Ammar.
Yeah.
In 1968, I listened to a person named Abu Ammar speaking in London, and at that time he was talking about the democratic and secular state of Palestine, where Christians and Muslims live side by side. Is it the same person? And is this was this the beginning of the thinking about the one nation state?
Yeah, this is, in fact, this is the root of the one nation state, or the one democratic state for all people, all citizens, goes back to 1936, and it was proposed by a communist Jewish party. This communist party included certain Arabs as well, and because it was strongly connected with Russia, the Palestinians and the Jews were together in this communist party. Okay, and in order to come up with a solution that could be in line with the international communism, they thought of this. Okay, when the Fatah movement was established in 1964, the 1st of January, 65, they were asked, what do you think of the two-state solution? They said, no, we are secular, and they wanted to distance themselves from Ikhwan at the time, because Ikhwan was a source of trouble. Wherever you go, because Jamal Abdel Nasser oppressed them at the time, and in 1966 he executed Sayyid Qutb. So, although the background was Ikhwan Muslimin, Abu Ammar, even Mahmoud Abbas, the current president, Abu Iyad Salah Khalaf, who was assassinated in Tunisia in 1991, he was second person after Abu Ammar, and then Abu Jihad, who was assassinated in 1988. All these people with an Ikhwani background, and in order to distance themselves, because Egypt will not talk to them if it knew that they are Ikhwani people or coming from an Ikhwani background. So they wanted to stress the idea that we are not Ikhwan, we are secular, and we can accept a state, a secular state where all religions can live in peace together, Muslims, Jews, and Christians. So this might be the explanation of the 1968 statement said by this man.
There was also what was known as Allen Plan, also known as no state solution.
Sorry, can I?
Allen Plan.
Okay.
Also known as no state solution.
No state. Okay, who was that? No, I not
there was no state.
This is Wikipedia.
Yes.
Okay. Is Wikipedia trustworthy, academically speaking? You know, sometimes it's worthy. I know that, but I've never heard of this. When was that? Year? No year. Allen Plan. Yeah, this is another phrase which is called bi-national solution. It's one more or less like the two-nation state, the two-nation state here. Thank you.
You mentioned that your definition of two-state solution, right? If if you accept, is based on the 1947 border, right?
Yes.
Is this the definition that is accepted by the Israelis as well? I mean, if they say, when they have been saying like two-state solution and all, right? So do they take 1947 border as the base for their negotiation?
Okay. When the partition plan was issued by the UN, the Israelis rejected it on the ground that it doesn't meet their aspirations, because they believe, if you look at the Israeli flag, you will find the two blue lines. They believe that the country should extend from Nile to Euphrates, and these are the two lines. These are the, it has no borders. So they don't accept it, basically. And they were angry with the international community, and there are a lot of statements condemning the British themselves even. Many Israeli leaders believe that the British betrayed them when they orchestrated the 1947 plan. And they wrote badly about Britain, because we agreed with you to give us a home, just stick to the idea of giving us a home in Palestine. Why do you come and divide our land? This is their approach of them. Yeah.
Your confidence on Obama as the president of the United States?
Obama is a very controversial person. He was a good friend of Edward Said, and people who knew, you know, Edward Said is a very famous advocate of Palestine, and even in his presidential campaign, people who ran against him circulated this photo everywhere in order to label him as a pro-Palestinian, a friend of Edward Said, who was a wicked advocate of Israel, and he was a wicked hater of Israel, etc., etc. And this is really true. And Obama was a friend of Rashid al-Khaldi. He's a Palestinian professor at Columbia University. But from the time he took over, he started to change. But people say that nobody can get into the stage of running for the elections until he gave guarantees for the Zionist lobby in America. And it is known that without the support of the Zionist lobby in America, it is not necessarily to be Jewish. Zionism is adopted by Christians, non-Jews, okay? Especially the new cons, whose main teacher is Bernard Lewis, the Orientalist, the famous Orientalist, and Daniel Pipes, and other names. So when it comes to Obama, I myself, I don't believe that he came to the elections with an intention and he then changed. No, the man is already in line with the institution, the American institution that is already against all the aspirations of Arab, particularly Palestinians. He is part of a big institution. He cannot change anything. Although, historically speaking and professionally speaking, the American president may have more powers than any president in the world. He can even veto things done by the Congress itself. But there are things people cannot understand. Ourselves cannot understand how this world is run. It's more complicated than explaining it as simple as that. But he's no good anyway. Many people believe that he was better to Israel than even Bush himself, when he says that Israel's and America's connection is unbreakable. Israel's security is America's security. The reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah, even it was really so stupid of his to come out to the media and get into internal politics in Palestine. I say stupid to say Abbas should choose either Hamas or us. This is really stupid. You can even do it in a subtle way. But he wants to please the Israelis, he wants to please the Americans, he wants to be in line with the line of the institution, historically speaking.
Doctor, what we read in the internet, I mean, most of the Arab countries, before the Arab Spring, they were... Before the Arab Spring?
Okay,
they are supporting the... I
against Palestine or because of their own interests?
Good. Again, this is very complicated. Some of the Arab leaders are very much into the interest of Palestinians. Some of the Arab leaders are very much into the interest of Israel. Some of them are very much into the interest of their own people. It's very complicated. You cannot put them in one basket and say they are all bad or they are all good. Okay? But the thing is that everybody agrees that Palestinian cause constitutes a chronic headache to our governments. So they want to get rid of this headache whatsoever the results are. And to America, the two-state solution is fine because Obama himself, you remember the UN bid for statehood by Mahmoud Abbas. It was actually based on one of Obama's speeches last year when he said in September 2011, I hope that a Palestinian state see the light of day. And Mahmoud Abbas took it and started to promote the idea of the Palestinian state, and he went to the UN and he made this very emotional, destructive at the same time, emotional destructive speech. Consists of a lot of really fatal mistakes, although it gained a lot of support, moral support for Palestinians, because he stood in the international platform, he said we are people, we are like all you, we need a state, etc., etc. But the speech was consisted of two parts. The first part is to gain emotional support, and the second part was all about painful concessions of Palestinians. And luckily America vetoed it. Alhamdulillah that America vetoed it. If America accepted it, it was to one of the ministers in Gaza said, if America accepts this, all the world were praying for America to accept it. But to one of the ministers and analysts in Gaza, he said, if this bid is accepted, it will be the second big Nakba in the history of Palestinians, because of the concessions written down in the bottom of the speech. After the people start nodding and sleeping in the speech, because the speech was so long. So when you talk about America, Israel, complications, the Arab world, these all are connected, and the Arab world leaders were so happy to support Abbas to go for this two-state solution, because they want to get rid of this. They are blamed wherever they go. Their countries, their people are not happy with their performance, they are not happy with their support for Palestine. So if a Palestinian state sees the light of day, then they are relieved. And that was, in fact, the fact when Arafat went to Oslo Accords. The Palestinians were left to their destiny with the Israelis. And they watched, in fact, in 1993, constituted a very painful turning point in the Palestinian history. Before 1993, the Oslo Accord signing, okay, all Arab countries held the supported the Palestinians. Gulf states gave month salaries to the Palestinians working with the PLO and fighting Israel. After that, they said, okay, you have a state now, and go and work. And you have agreement with the Europeans, they promised you to give you money and to build your state, etc., etc. So building a state for Palestinians is a good thing for Arab leaders. This is why everything and now you will find an Arab leader stressing the fact Palestinians should have a state together with another state of Israel. Both of them should live in peace together. And this was again reiterated in what is called Al-Mubadara Arabiya, designed by King Abdullah when he was into the throne in 2000. When the Intifada erupted, he came up with an initiative called the Arab Initiative, or the Al-Mubadara Arabiya, in which he stressed again the idea of the two-state solution. At that time, Sharon said, this initiative is not worth the ink in which it was written, and he never looked at it. He was the Prime Minister.
Another question, please.
Yeah.
what do you make of the recent unity government with Abbas as Prime Minister, and what implication does it have on the solution of that conflict?
Well, on the ground, Hamas is in a very difficult position. It is suffering the tunnels, which are the main resource of tunneling and siphoning basics of life to the Palestinians are not sufficient enough, and Israel keeps bombing them. So you have to pay salaries for the government civil servants, for the police, for the security issues. So Hamas is really suffering on the ground, and there is a huge siege imposed from outside on the charities, because to the outside world, most of the charities working in Gaza, in a way or another, feed into Hamas's institutions. Okay? And again, the situation is so worse, and the Arab Spring has not resulted in practical solution for the Palestinians, simply because every country is absorbed in its internal politics. Egypt now, and we, as Palestinians, are so happy with the Arab Spring, the Arab revolutions in Egypt, Tunisia, etc., etc., but we don't expect them to turn to us unless they already have sorted out their own internal problems, which will take time. 30 years of corruption in Egypt. If you go to Egypt, you will feel, you must have passed through Egypt. It's like Middle Ages. And even if Ikhwan Muslimin take over, it will take on them. They have treaties with America. They are extremely tied to so many things, and the opposition and the anti-Islamist people. So we don't expect a lot from the Egyptian brothers at the moment. So much so, we had in Hamas to think of other solutions. Abbas is in a very weak position, because he is a replica of any crony of America in the region, like Hosni Mubarak, but he is lucky that he's a Palestinian. Yeah. Really, he's lucky he's an Palestinian and he lives under occupation. 2 weeks ago, he was not permitted by Israel to get out. And the visa they gave him was published in newspaper, in which you have a visa only for 2 months, and after that it is not renewable by Israel. It is in the, you can find it on the internet. So a man with this positioning has to come to terms with his differences with the faction ruling in Gaza, i.e. Hamas, and Hamas needs him, he needs Hamas. So they came together in Doha and declared the national unity government, and they agreed that Mahmoud Abbas, the president, will be the prime minister. Now the problem is with the government in Gaza and the parliament. Today, the parliament in Gaza said this is not constitutional. The Hamas government itself, the Hamas parliament. And there is a controversy now taking place on the ground in Gaza, and it's, I don't want to say a clash between Hamas outside Gaza and inside Gaza, because it seems that Khalid Mash'al, the Rais of Hamas, the president of Hamas, the chairman of Hamas, was put under certain pressure in Doha to come to a conclusion. And you know, Qatar is one main supporter of Hamas in the Arab world nowadays. So it seems that he took the decision. This is my analysis, it's not information. Okay? It seems that he took the decision personally. He wanted to get rid of all these differences, and he came to the, and so did Abbas. Abbas never returned back to Fatah. Abbas is known for his wicked ways of taking decisions. He is very famous of being a very cunning politician who can take the decision without returning. And Fatah is not a democratic like Hamas, or doesn't have shura system. So, because he has the money, he is the person who is supported by the West, etc., etc. Excuse me. Excuse me. He was able to take the decision, but for Khalid Mash'al it was a bit different. usually when a decision is to be taken, there are 3 types of Majlis Shura get hold at the same time, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and outside. Okay? They take the decision and they come out with one crystallized view of the thing. The thing is now, Hamas in Gaza has its own reservation. Hamas represented in the parliament, okay? Because this has to do with the constitution, whether this is legal or not, for the president to be the prime minister. If you follow the timeline of the reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, one of the main obstacles of reaching agreement is appointing the prime minister. Fatah needs to appoint a prime minister whose name is Salam Fayyad, who is in charge now in Ramallah, and Hamas insists that this man is corrupt and he will never be a prime minister. And this what makes the reconciliation some 5 months after they declared it in Cairo to get delayed. So finally they had to reach an agreement. Anyway, the representatives of Hamas in Gaza now seem to be unwilling to go for this choice. Now they say that Article 45 in the Palestinian Constitution says that it is not allowed for the president to be the prime minister. And in fact, it is funny, it's a bit funny. You know, historically speaking, Arafat had everything in his hand. And when they wanted to get rid of him, I mean America and Israel, they imposed on him the idea of having a prime minister. And they had in mind Mahmoud Abbas at the time. I'm talking about 2002. Okay? So, to deconstruct Arafat's strong hand and strong powers, they took most of his powers and gave it to the prime minister, who was Mahmoud Abbas at the moment, and this led to gradually get rid of Arafat. Okay, and this was a turning point in the political system in Palestine. Now Abbas is making the thing that he was condemning, because he condemned Arafat's heavy hand on everything. And he was the one who orchestrated the idea of inventing the prime minister post with the help of Americans. Now he is holding. This is the pretext under which Hamas in Gaza refuses to give the post of the prime minister to Abbas, simply because to them he will collect everything in his hand and the situation will be difficult. And this man, you cannot trust him at all. But it seems that there is a series of beating and things taking place between Hamas inside Gaza and Hamas outside Gaza in order to reach agreement, because the thing that the media has discovered that something on the ground or behind the scene happening, and it is a bit clear that Khalid Mash'al was put under pressure and he just wanted to do something. Yeah.
Is it true he's leaving?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he took the decision in 2 months ago. There was a Majlis Shura for all Hamas people in Khartoum. They all came from Gaza, from outside, from the West Bank, and in the middle of this Majlis, he declared that he will no longer continue and he will leave it I think in May. And this was publicly said, and it was endorsed by Hamas. But technically speaking, they said, okay, there is elections and we will see what elections result in.
I'm happy to announce that we have together tonight Dr. Nur Manuty, our Chief for Information Bureau for Parti KeADILan Rakyat. He's also our head for the KeADILan in Perak State, and also YB Yusmadi Yusof, one of our young member of Parliament.
Just raise your hand, brother. What is
that?
Oh, okay.
Dr. Manuty. So YB
Selamat datang.
YB Yusmadi is also our head for International Bureau. So maybe any questions or your comments, YB Yusmadi and Dr. Manuty, on what has been said by Dr. Mehmoud.
I just
sorry for a bit late because I was in the Australian Day. In fact, I was with the Palestinian ambassador this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were with him?
Yeah, I was with him with
Okay.
unofficial meetings.
Yeah.
Discussed where he did some clarifications. I just would like you to explain further on the issue of what is the latest after the failure of getting Palestinian recognition at United Nations level. You know, recently there was a very strong dynamic, almost every day try to get that recognition and almost try to get Palestinian flag. And it was vetoed at the UN, but it was well received at the UNESCO. Yes. Until it was a threat of the issue of funding and everything. I just would like to know, probably you can enlighten us, what is the latest on that? Because for me, from the foreign diplomacy point of view, that was quite a very high level. Because the day you want to reach UN, we are talking about you will get or you will not. You know, it can be a flip of the coins. Yes, as bad as I still remember, I was at UN security meetings at the time when we talked about lifting Cuba sanction. All of a sudden, you see the dynamic, and US stand alone with two small countries, which are sponsored by US. So I want to understand, can you enlighten us at that time, what was the dynamic in UN? I mean, are you talking about a majority of the members, or still US and a few?
Well, the idea of the UN bid for statehood by Mahmoud Abbas was based on one of Obama's speeches. I reiterate again, I mentioned this before. Last year in a speech in September, he said, I would love to have to see a Palestinian state next year in September. So Mahmoud Abbas is a very clever person, and he took it, and he knows. Mahmoud Abbas is very famous of the margins where he can maneuver. Yeah. He is a crony of America, but he knows sometimes, he knows better than any Arab leader how to make them angry sometimes, because again Palestine is a special case, and he can collect support from other countries. Okay? But the thing is with the UN, yes, if the Palestinians were successful in getting a UN recognition of their Palestine, it has its negative side and it has its positive side. But it depends from which angle you look at it. If the UN would recognize a Palestinian statehood without an army, a Palestinian statehood whose economics is strongly connected to Israel's economy, a Palestinian state whose taxes go to the Israeli banks before they got transferred to the Palestinian banks. You know, whenever the Israelis want to put the Palestinians under pressure, they said, okay, they know there is no money this month sent to the Palestinians banks from the taxes on the products that exported from Palestinian land to the Israeli. This is again under the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords was the treaty, was a catastrophic turning point in the history of Palestinians. We were put under the Israeli sovereignty at all aspects of life. We cannot move economically. We cannot even sign agreements with any other country of the world unless Israel is consent. We cannot travel unless Israel allows us to travel. We cannot do a lot of things that are the characteristics of sovereign countries. The Palestinians were deprived of these characteristics according to Oslo Accords. And Mahmoud Abbas complied by Oslo Accords when he went to the UN. The UN bid for statehood presented by Mahmoud Abbas was in line with Oslo Accords. He didn't go beyond this. He gave a lot, in fact. So when you talk about, and as I said, luckily the Americans stood against it. The Americans are not willing to give Palestinians anything. So that they kept pressing on other countries. In the beginning, in the media, the Palestinian people who promoted the idea amongst the Security Council states and the UN Assembly states, they were happy, and every day, you would hear that, oh, Alhamdulillah, Bosnia and Herzegovina agreed to vote for Palestine. Alhamdulillah, Cuba agreed, Alhamdulillah. And in the time of voting, America was able to undermine all these efforts and to convince the states not to go for the recognition of Palestine. So the whole thing about the UN statehood bid was from the beginning dead or null and void or nonsensical. It was just an emotional move on the level of the international moral support for a moment, and it faded after that.
So you were saying it's a non-starter even from the beginning.
Sorry?
I mean, sorry, you were saying even from the beginning, it was very much about a show rather than.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You are totally connected with the Israeli economy. Mahmoud Abbas, to many analysts, he is an employee in a big company called Israel that is a branch of a bigger company, a holding company called America. He receives his salaries from these people. This is true. It's true. It's not analysis. This is information. They gave him the money. How do you expect him to do something that upsets them to the extent that they fire him?
The struggle in Palestine, I think, is really almost 4 generations. So, the people of Palestine are not tired at all. I just want to know, I mean, what's made the people, I mean, what motivated the people in Palestine to struggle? Or in the segment of the Palestinian society, some say that, okay, it's too long for us forever, so let's find a way to stop this thing. What are the sentiment among the youngsters?
George Galloway delivered a speech on the film festival in KL, in the pavilion, and I was touched by a phrase he said. And after the meeting, after the talk, we met together and I asked him, where did you get this phrase from? I liked it very much. He said, oh, I get it from Arafat. And the phrase goes like this: if it is not for the Palestinian determination to live in their land, there would have been an ex-nation about whom we study at schools and in museums. Like the Native Americans, Alhamdulillah. My analysis of this is that Palestine is a special place, first and foremost, religiously speaking. We have nusus that gives us the bishara. You know the word bishara, of course. Yeah? That in the end, this land will go back to its own people. So why should the Palestinians surrender while they know that time is in their favor? Okay? Secondly, the Palestinians in Palestine, Alhamdulillah, received a lot of heart-lifting things. Starting from the moral support, from the news, from the articles written by journalists, from the books written in Palestine, from the visitors who come every then and know and stand by us, from the songs. People in Palestine sometimes, they don't know English, but they like to listen to Maher Zain. And they say, this is by a Canadian brother who sings for Palestine, Sami Yusuf. And a lot of the people who sings in all languages for Palestine. This is, to some people this doesn't make any difference, but to the Palestinians, it makes a lot of difference. Makes a lot of difference. We feel in Palestine that we are the representatives of the whole Ummah. So it is our responsibility not to let down the whole Ummah. We have to lift up to the level the Ummah wants us to be in. Brother Mustafa can tell some stories. You must have told some stories of Palestine. when I was in the UK, I will tell you something about myself. I was deeply frustrated and deeply sad during the war, because I was in Manchester and I followed the news and I was really depressed. I was writing on my thesis at the time, and the war happened in a very, very crucial time in my life. So I have to write the thesis, I have a deadline, I have to submit. I have to have the viva in 2 months later after the thing. So it came to my mind, why do Palestinians receive all this suffering? It is 60 years now. After having lived in Britain for 7 years intermittently, I feel that we have to be more realistic. We have to think of something that avoid us all this suffering. Especially, I lost 3 of my life friends, soulmates, during the war. I see the news one by one. One of them is my brother-in-law, in fact. And I thought, why on earth we keep determined? This is stupidity. I felt for a moment, I must confess that I live in Manchester, I see how people live. We should live at least like this, people. Why are we accepting this state of endless suffering for nothing? Because the Palestinians revolted against the British and they gained nothing in 1936. The Palestinians fought with Arabs in 1984 and they lost more lands to the interest of Israel. And 1967, the Palestinians fought with the Egyptians and again more lands were swallowed by Israel. And the Intifada erupted in 1989 and it lasted for 1993, and Oslo Accords came and it was a curse in the history of Palestinians. So wherever you go in the Palestinian history, you can't find any glimpse of hope that any phase of struggle would lead to a good conclusion. But, yeah. Sorry?
Karame, the Battle of Karame?
Yeah, the Karama is a good page in the history of Palestinians, 1968. But again, it was stolen. It was diverted. The same happened to 1973. It was a victory in terms of army and military, but it was, again, a defeat in terms of politics. And look at what Sadat did. He gained nothing out of it. Apart from Sinai liberation, but he could gain better. Okay? So it came to my mind, why do we do this? When I got back, I carried these meanings with me and I said, why don't we just keep silent until we get stronger or do something, or the world changes, or anything happens, or America collapses, or anything happens, or China rises and decides to stand by the Palestinians. We have to be quiet until something happens. We cannot say always, we have to resist whatever the results are. But Alhamdulillah, Allah cured me of this. Yeah. When I got back, the people about whom I was agonizing gave me a lesson of determination. I went to my mother-in-law and I said something similar to what I have told you. She looked at me, Mahmoud, did we send you to Britain to come with this mentality to us? She regretted that they sent me to Britain. If we knew that we are going to listen to such bad ideas, if I have 10 sons and they go for jihad, I will never hesitate to send them to the battleground. Her son was a fighter with Bersama at the moment. And I started to learn the lesson from these mothers, and she is one of hundreds. You must have met Farahat. You know her, Maryam Farahat. Yeah, the Khansa of Palestine, who encouraged her 3 sons to go and do jihad. And by the time I started to feel the barakah of jihad. 2 days ago when we were with Abu Ammar, Hamad Ahmed al-Rashid, he's writing a book now called Tanzir al-Taghyir, a 500-page book. It talks about how the Arab youth should invest in this revolution and build a civilization. In this book, he says something interesting about Gaza. He says, I would like to stress the fact, without the steadfastness of Palestinians in Gaza, these revolutions would have been delayed. He said that, I know that there's something was going to happen, but with the steadfastness of the Palestinians, with the intransigent they enjoy in Palestine, hasten the pace of the revolution. And that's fair enough. So, the people who die compared to the conclusions that is taking place on the ground is nothing. Freedom deserves more than this.
Dr. Manuty, anything to address? Several hours ago, it was commented that the United States said that Israel has committed to seeking the two-state solution despite the Jewish state's warnings to the Palestinian leadership over its reconciliation with Israel's outspoken foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, over issues in the Middle East, including Iran's contested nuclear program and the Palestinian situation. Anything comment on that?
Yeah, the Americans, whenever they feel that Fatah and Hamas are going to get together, they just raise the flag of the two-state solution and please come back to the negotiations. Abbas many times, he did it many times, and they did it with him many times. This is funny. Hamas knows this, but what can it do? Abbas is desperate to reach a conclusion with the Israelis. He is a man of negotiation. Even the chief negotiator of his team, called Saad Beriqat, you must know him. That he's the big name in the negotiation and the history of Palestinian-Israeli negotiation. He wrote a book. The title of the book is Al-Hayat Mufawadat. Life is negotiation. They live on negotiation. People are talking, as Ilan Pape, the Israeli historian, is against Israel now. He says people should understand that the world is talking about a peace process, not peace. You see, this peace process sometimes becomes a business. Yeah, becomes a business to the extent that if a peace is reached, some people will lose their jobs. So people talk about peace process, not peace. Okay? Okay. Maybe the scenario is like this. Obama is watching the TV, Netanyahu is watching the TV. Oh, Abbas is angry, he's frustrated with us, we didn't give him anything, we keep arresting people, we keep getting into the land under his control and take people, and sometimes if any Israeli gets lost inside the West Bank Palestinian Authority controlled area, the Palestinian Authority would take him, invite him to a cup of tea, and then bring him back in the evening to the Israeli authorities. Unlike Hamas get into the Israeli-controlled place and arrested the soldier and took it until 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were released. Okay? Now, okay, he did a lot of things to us. He is cooperative, he's fine, he's doing fine. But listen, now he is doing something with Khalid Mash'al. Let us raise the flag of the two-state solution. This will involve another round of negotiation. And Abbas made it many times. He would turn his shoulder to Hamas and just go for the negotiation. Whenever they call them, he will not hesitate to get back to the table of negotiation. And I think this statement comes in the context of distancing Abbas from Hamas. And Hamas, maybe, this is my analysis, Khalid Mash'al, when he was put under pressure by the Qataris to reach a conclusion with Abbas, maybe he knew that even if he will go for this, Abbas will never be able to go for it. And he wanted just to gain the ground on public, because the public, all Muslim Ummah, are not happy with the idea of the division between Hamas and Fatah, because both of them represent for bad or good. Because not all people can understand that Fatah ended up completely in the hands of the Israelis and the Americans, unfortunately. And they are part, and they are, unfortunately, because they pay the salaries a big section of the society is confused.
Among the youngsters when they go to the are they taking it as a struggle in the context of religion, or a struggle in the context of the right to the self-determination? And also, what about Hamas? Tactically, how? Does Hamas promote the idea of the right to self-determination, or get the idea of all this war, all this struggle for the Palestinian people?
Okay, well, for the first part of your question about the Palestinian youth, alhamdulillah, now more aware than before, especially the internet, the new media, including the Facebook and Twitter. You will have a lot of Palestinian youth who are interested in politics more than ever, and you will find secular people from amongst the Palestinian youth who are in line with Hamas aspiration now, simply because they tried all solutions. They tried communism, they tried socialism, they tried all things, and none of these worked out. None of these came out with any good conclusion for the Palestinian cause. This is first. The second point, you wanted to talk about the holy war concept. No, Hamas doesn't believe publicly that expelling the Israelis, there is this misconception that Hamas fights Jews because they are Jews, and this is made clear by Hamas's leadership many times. And Dr. Qardawi, Dr. Qardawi mentioned this in his books, that we Muslims, of course, and he says, Dr. Qardawi says, usually is adopted by Hamas, specifically, especially when it comes to religion and these things. He said, we don't fight Jews because they are Jews. We fight them because they are colonizers. If an Arab comes to colonize my country, I will fight him. If a Muslim comes to colonize my home, he is my brother in Islam, but he wants to take my home, I would fight him. And this is there in the fiqh. It doesn't have to do with religion. And asked, one of the leaders of Hamas was asked, do you recognize Israel's right to existence? He said, yes, but not in my land. This should be made clear. But on the other hand, there is this mixture between jihad as a holy war, and even though we don't like this concept, we don't adopt it. Jihad is jihad, that's it. It has its content, we have our own definition of jihad. And Al-Qardawi has published a big book of 2 volumes, each one consists of nearly 800 pages, about al-jihad, in order to clarify this point. And al-jihad is not only fighting, and we are the last people to think of fighting. Okay? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ. Fighting was written on you, although it is not likable for you. This is a human. Nobody, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin mentioned this before many times. We don't like to fight. We love to live a peaceful life, happy life, free war life, or war-free life. But what can you do if somebody, imagine this is the thief. The thief example is very clear. A thief comes to your house, okay, kick you out, and after that, oh, let us sit down, let us talk, I'm able to give you a room, and you should say thank you, because I'm more powerful than you. No, it doesn't go like this. We fight the Jews because they are occupiers, they are colonizers, not because of their religion, and it is reiterated every day and now that the golden age, according to the Encyclopedia Judaica, the golden age of the Jews in the history of the world was in Andalusia, where the Muslim ruled for 800 years. sleepy.